The prairie wind carried the scent of dust and honeysuckle as evening settled over the Bar M ranch. Inside the long, low barn, lantern light glowed against the rough timber walls, spilling warmth over the tools, saddles, and one nervous bride. Clara Mayfield stood by the workbench, her gloved hands folded tightly before her. Her white dress, simple but clean, brushed against her boots, and a loose curl had escaped her bonnet to tremble near her cheek. She had never been this far from home before, never this alone with a man who wasn't kin, and now she was married to one. Eli McKenna moved with the steady grace of a man used to silence. He was tall, lean and sunburned, his shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, the muscles in his forearms catching the lamplight as he worked. A master with his hands, he could fix a saddle, mend a fence, or calm a horse that would buck anyone else. But right now, those same hands hesitated in midair, clutching a piece of leather strap that Clara had asked him for. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice low and rough like gravel under a wagon wheel. Clara swallowed, eyes wide but steady. "Yes, Mr. McKenna, I need the full 11 inches. Not 10, not 10 and a half. Eli froze. The words hung between them, awkward as a loose spur. His blue eyes flicked toward her, searching her face, unsure if he'd heard right. For a moment he thought the girl was teasing him, though from the look of her, sweet and unknowing, she didn't seem the sort. "The full 11, she repeated, firmer this time. "That's what the pattern says." Eli cleared his throat and set the strap down, realizing with embarrassment that she was talking about the leather belt she was helping him make for her father's old rifle scabbard. He rubbed a hand over his jaw and forced a small, crooked smile. "You sure do follow directions close, Mrs. McKenna." She looked down at her gloves. "It's my first time working leather, sir. I don't aim to ruin it." Something in the way she said "sir" sent a small ache through him. She was trying hard to sound confident, to hide the tremor in her voice. He remembered that she was only 18, barely more than a girl, sent here to marry him by arrangement after his first wife died. Her father had promised him a hard-working, decent woman. He hadn't mentioned how fragile she'd seem under all that prairie steel. Eli cut the leather with care, measuring exactly 11 inches, his knife gliding through as clean as the whisper of a breeze. Clara watched, fascinated. She'd never seen hands move so sure. "You do it like you're carving scripture," she murmured. He chuckled softly. "A man's tools are his Bible out here." Her eyes lifted to meet his, and for a long heartbeat neither looked away. Outside, the cicadas hummed, and somewhere in the dark, a horse snorted. "You ain't got to call me Mr. McKenna all the time," he said, still working but slower now. "You can call me Eli." Her lips parted. "Eli," she whispered as if testing how the word fit in her mouth. It sent a strange warmth through him. He handed her the finished strip of leather. "There, 11 inches, just like you asked." She took it carefully, her fingers brushing his. Her pulse fluttered. "Thank you, Eli." He busied himself with his tools again, pretending not to notice the faint color blooming in her cheeks. But inside, something shifted. He'd expected a quiet marriage and a practical one. She'd cook, he'd work, and the house would stand steady as the hills. But now, watching her tuck that leather strip against her chest like it meant something more, he realized this wasn't going to be simple. Clara smiled shyly. "I reckon I'll practice stitching it tonight if you don't mind." He nodded. "You can use the table by the fire. There's light enough there." As she turned to go, her skirt brushed his knee and the faint scent of lavender soap lingered in the air. He watched her move toward the house, the lamplight catching the curve of her shoulder. She looked back once, uncertain but hopeful. Eli stayed there long after she was gone, the knife still in his hand, the memory of her voice. "Give me the full 11 inches, echoing in his head. He shook it off and laughed under his breath, half ashamed and half charmed. "She's going to be the death of me." He muttered to the empty barn, then blew out the lantern. Outside, the night wind carried the faint sound of her humming, and soft, pure, and full of promise, across the open plains. The morning sun rose pale and slow over the open plains, touching the ranch house with gold. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and warm biscuits. Clara stood by the hearth, stirring the pot with a wooden spoon too big for her small hands. The leather strap she'd cut the night before rested on the table, the stitches uneven but neat. She'd stayed up late working on it, determined to make it perfect for Eli. She'd heard him come in from the barn past midnight, boots dragging softly, trying not to wake her. but she hadn't slept. Her thoughts had been full of him, the quiet steadiness in his voice, the way he'd looked at her when she'd said his name, Eli. It still made her heart skip. Now she wanted to show him she wasn't just some farmer's daughter sent to fill a house. She wanted to prove she could belong here by his side, not as a burden, but as a partner. The door creaked open, and the cool morning breeze followed Eli in. His hat hung low over his brow, and his shirt was already damp at the collar from work. He stopped when he saw her. "Mornin', Mrs." He paused, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Mornin', Clara." She turned, the spoon still in hand. "Coffee's ready and—" "I finished the strap." He stepped closer, the floorboards creaking under his boots. On the table lay the stitched piece of leather, every mark carefully pressed and tied. He picked it up, turning it in his rough hands, and whistled softly. "Well now," he said. "That's fine work. Stitching straight, edges smooth. You did this all yourself?" She nodded, trying not to beam too obviously. "You said I could use the firelight. I didn't want to waste the evening." He set the strap down gently as though it were something fragile. "You didn't waste a thing." Her pulse quickened at his praise. The silence between them grew heavy again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was full of unspoken things, like the air before a summer storm. Eli sat at the table, pulling off his gloves. "You eat yet?" "No," she said softly. "I was waiting for you." He glanced up, caught off guard by the simple honesty in her voice. Most women he'd known spoke around their feelings, but Clara said what she meant. It stirred something deep inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time. They ate together in quiet, the clink of silverware and the wind outside the only sounds. She poured him more coffee, and he nodded his thanks. When he reached for the cup, his fingers brushed hers again. Neither moved away this time. "You're getting used to ranch life faster than I thought," he said, breaking the silence. "I want to," she answered quickly. "I know I'm not what you expected." He stopped her with a gentle look. "You're exactly what I expected. Maybe even better." Her throat tightened. Compliments weren't something she was used to. "You don't have to say that just to be kind." "I ain't," he said simply. "You remind me what quiet can feel like. Not empty, just peaceful." The words warmed her more than the fire. For a moment she forgot her shyness, forgot the walls that seemed to stand between them. "Eli," she said softly, "I want to learn everything you can teach me about this life. The ranch, the horses, even the land. I can do it all if you just show me how." He studied her, the sunlight tracing the outline of her face. "You mean that?" She nodded. "Every word." He leaned back, arms crossed, a hint of admiration softening his rugged features. "Then we'll start today. You'll ride with me down to the creek after breakfast. We've got a fence to mend, and you can measure the boards yourself." Her eyes lit up. "Can I really?" He smiled. "I trust you to get it right. 11 inches in all." Her laughter filled the small kitchen, sweet and surprised. It was the first time she'd laughed since arriving, and Eli realized how much he'd missed that sound in his home. When they stepped outside later, the sun was higher, turning the grass into waves of gold. She followed him to the corral where the horses waited. He handed her the reins of a gentle mare, his hand steady over hers. "Keep your back straight," he said softly, his breath near her ear. "Let her feel your confidence. She'll listen." She nodded, nerves fluttering like birds in her chest. "Like this?" "Just like that," he murmured. "Perfect." For the first time she felt it, not fear, not uncertainty, but belonging. The land stretched out before her, wide and wild, and Eli's quiet strength beside her made her feel as though she could face anything. As they rode out together, dust rising behind them, the sky opened wide above, endless and blue. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was a promise, of patience, of learning, of something deeper waiting to take root beneath the vast western sky. Eli glanced at her, the wind tugging at her bonnet strings, her face glowing with pride. "You're a natural," he said. She smiled back, holding his gaze. "I had a good teacher."